For today's adventure, we're going to take a chuck roast, we're going to smoke it. We're going to begin by preparing a marinade that consists of either Worcestershire sauce or soy sauce, extra virgin olive oil, and a little bit of garlic. We go ahead and we mix the olive oil with the Worcestershire sauce. Purpose for this stuff is it starts to break down the meat. It's acidic in nature, and then a little bit of the garlic powder. So we'll take those, we'll mix them up, blend them up. Once that's done, we go ahead and we take Montreal steak seasoning, and we're going to season up our roast. Same thing I do, exact same thing for steaks. We go ahead, we get that, and we begin by patting it into the meat. Go ahead and mix up the marinade. Now typically I like to let this sit for a good 4 hours in a bag in the fridge. But for today, what we're going to do is kill two birds with one stone. You never ever want to put your meat onto the grill or onto the smoker when it is cold. It's going to take longer to cook, it's going to take longer to raise to room temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and just simply pour this over top of the meat, and I'm actually going to let it sit on the counter and marinate here for a good hour. Usually, like I said, I do about 4 hours in the fridge, but we're going to do it this way today and leave it on the counter. This way the meat will rise to room temperature, the marinade will set and will start absorbing into the meat, provides flavor, starts to break down the outer part of it, so that when it crusts up out in the smoker, lo and behold, we keep a nice solid outside and we don't lose any of that juiciness. You'll notice I haven't trimmed any of the fat off the meat. There's two schools of thought on this. One, remove as much fat as possible before you put it on. I like to leave it on. It's going to render as the meat cooks, and will fall away into the drip tray at the bottom, and in this way it helps to keep the moisture content inside of the meat. Continuing on, you'll notice I've got a charcoal chimney, about 1/3 of the way filled with charcoal. We're going to go ahead, turn on our gas, and then we're going to go ahead and fire that up. So by firing that up, it's going to actually, we're using the side burner in order to ignite it. So there we go, we'll get that going. In the meantime, over on the smoker side, you'll notice I've removed one of my grates. Why? I have an old pot I keep in there with water. The reason that we keep the water in there, it allows to regulate the temperature from the firebox coming in, provides steam which helps to infuse the smoke into the meat. Lastly, the firebox. This is important. You'll notice I have the intake, the air intake on the baffle closed up as much as I can get it. So I want to limit how much air comes in. I've also preloaded charcoal in here. The trick is this: we don't want to load the hot coals on this. We want to put it over on the side that's open there. This way that'll burn across and maintain a temperature inside of our smoker for us. So I'm going to go ahead and put my grate back on. That's now in place. And then once we have our chimney lit and our fire going in there, we'll go ahead and we'll finish up with getting it going. One of the things you'll notice, good brush is always important. Also keep my tools for the grates handy. This particular smoker has a really nice spot in the bottom that I keep my wood in. Now you'll notice I'm not using chunks, I'm using split pieces. The reason I do this, I had a cherry tree taken down and it's just a little more convenient for me. So with that being said, you'll notice I also have both grates open. As you can see, I'm on a deck. I've put fire bricks underneath just to make sure that I don't catch it on fire. But you can also see that my coals are starting to take light. The reason I have both open, I'm going to transfer my hot coals from here across both and into the firebox. This way I make sure I don't set my deck on fire, because we do sometimes get small pieces. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn this off. And you'll notice it's sitting there ready to go. As I mentioned, we're going to pour these into the far side. So I want to make sure that they're over there. And then I put this underneath. So I've got my hot coals. They'll go ahead and feed across, fueling this along the way. Important to always have something handy to move coals if you need to. I've got a couple that are a little too close from where I want them, so I'm going to move them off to the edge. Again, our damper is shut all the way. Now I typically at this point will go ahead and add pieces of wood. So I'm going to start with a nice simple piece of cherry. You'll see I'm laying it this way across my coals. As time progresses, it'll ignite and flow across. But I also want to make sure that I keep the meat cooking over time. So I'm going to add another one this way. This will actually start up on the top over here. And then as the heat goes back, it'll continue. This will keep my smoke going for a good couple of hours, infusing the meat. As well as with this setup, starting over on this side with the hot coals and then letting it burn across will give me probably a good 6-hour sustained burn. We go ahead, we close up all of our lids. And the important part is this, the upper damper. We keep this open. So we're going to control the temperature of the entire process with the side damper of the box. We want to make sure it's closed. Make sure that the drawer is in tight, lid's down, and now the smoke starts spewing out of the top. Once our smoke is at a nice temperature since I fired it up, we're right around 225 degrees. It'll probably still heat up a little more, up to around 250. But you'll also notice the smoke is coming out very, very nice. Key things, we want to keep our door to our smoker and to our firebox closed as much as possible. This helps maintain a regulated heat. Now when it comes to putting meats on your smoker, there's a couple things to point out. First off, on this side where the firebox is going to be the hottest part of your grill. Food will cook and burn quickly here. So as you're doing things, you'll want to rotate them around on your grilling surface to make sure that they don't happen. The other key factor is when you're putting your meats and things onto the grill, never, ever, ever use a fork. A fork will pierce the meat, which will actually let the juices out. A nice set of long handled tongs are going to be your key saving grace. So here we've got our roast. It's been marinating now for a good half an hour, 45 minutes. We simply go ahead and give it a lift. And you'll notice I put it on the far end away. So what this does is it allows the heat to flow across, the smoke will come across and up the chimney out there, and it'll help season the meat properly. I may turn this 2 or 3 times just so that the one side over here doesn't get overcooked and so that we get evenness throughout. Trick now, let's go ahead, we're going to close up our lid, and you can see in doing so my temperature has dropped down a good 50-60 degrees. So it won't take very long for that heat to come back up now that we've got the lid closed. Again, over here on the smoker box, the damper is closed. That'll go ahead and feed into the chamber, come up through and out the top. As for the leftover marinade, we want to discard this. We do not reuse it. We'll get rid of it, and then from there we'll wash up our utensils. Similarly with our tongs, we want to give them a good washing too because we have raw meat on them, raw juices, that's bacteria. We don't want to spread that back onto the meat as it cooks. So as you can see, we're kicking lots of smoke out. It does tend to seep out from the bottom as well. And you can see temperature's already coming right back up.